real quick on, I feel like we have to cover Star Trek Beyond.
I'm not doing it.
Star Trek Beyond had one of the worst teaser trailers in history.
Yeah, it was awful.
That we spoke about, what was that, like last December, which was
motorcycles
and Beastie Boys Sabotage, which is a great song but did not fit, which shows up in the movie actually, but it actually makes sense.
Oh, okay.
I'll do mild spoilers here. So Star Trek Beyond got good reviews. This is the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. Co-written by Simon Pegg, who plays Scotty in these movies, does a great job. This to me was the... Have you seen the other movies?
No, I've seen none of them, and I don't care what you spoil personally for me.
This was to me the best out of these three new ones. The first two were done by J.J. Abrams, and second one was really shaky, Into Darkness, because it was a remake of Wrath of Khan with the Khan character. Spoilers, the movie's been out for like 3 years. With the same plot beats, though. So to me, it was lazy. You had the Khan yelling, but now it was done by Spock and not Kirk. Kirk dies instead of Spock, but they bring him back. It was like so just lazy that you had to fall back on the most famous Star Trek film, arguably the best one, and then use the same plot points for it. And it's also the second Star Trek new film.
Right.
It's just left a bad taste in my mouth. And honestly, I remember nothing about it. I honestly don't. So what was better about Star Trek Beyond is that the plot was straightforward. It's not spoilers. In the first 20 minutes, their ship gets destroyed, and they have to find their way off of this planet. It's in all the trailers.
That was in all the trailers, yeah.
So, it's more character-driven. You have a lot of good moments. Finally, Carl Urban gets to shine as Bones. A lot of the best moments in the film are him and his interaction with Spock, which was a throwback to how the interaction between those two characters, how they hated each other. At least Bones hated Spock in the original movies. So that was all well done. Kirk's character was his sort of like, oh, I'm just like this arrogant young kid, was finally downplayed, where the fact that, hey, Kirk was actually a pretty good leader and knew what he was doing.
Nice.
And I think in the first two movies, especially the first one, because he was just starting out as a snot-nosed kid, but even the second one, it's sort of like he was almost like too much seat in my pants, like no one ever give you the captain's chair on a ship, acting like that. Like it was just like, no, you're too unpredictable and too. So in this one, he acted more grounded. There was still action. You can't get away with these movies. These are modern movies. You're going to have action in a Star Trek movie. We know that. But there were a lot of smaller character moments and dialogue in between the vroom vroom stuff, which I'll get into that in a second. Which that was not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Uh-huh.
It actually kind of made sense in the context.
Okay.
Minor spoilers about that. They find that dirt bike motorcycle on another ship. So it was not from a replicator. It was on a much, much older ship that happened to be abandoned that they find it on. Still kind of dumb, but it's not as dumb as having it on the Enterprise or being a replicator. Okay, that's the worst part of the film. But still, that was not as bad as I thought. The only bad part about that sequence was the CG moment leading up to it, or like it goes from like behind perspective, third person of Kirk on the bike with that white alien female, who her character was better than I thought from the trailers. Her character wasn't simply a Gamora ripoff. There was a little bit of depth to it. That was the only bad CG of the movie, where it was like riding behind it and it looked so bad, like bumping on the rocks. So. I'd say the worst part of the film was not the villain Krall, played by Idris Elba. He did the best with what he had, but the character was so underdeveloped in the motivations that it was one of those things where it was like, you either go it and do it not at all with motivations, just have him be just sort of a guy out for blood and wants to destroy everything,
right?
Or you have to explain it more up front, because with this they explain it like 80% into the movie. By that point, it's like it's too late to get into evil character motivations. You have to do that way earlier. They hit it. I think they wanted like some sort of shock value, which I don't think they didn't earn the shock value. It was like very mild. It's like, okay, that's a cool little twist, but it still didn't explain enough. Without giving away, it didn't explain enough for the motivation besides just that, or how, let's just say, how Krall gets all his minions to fight for him, like his little army. Like, it didn't really explain enough of that. It sort of just it was almost like they cut out like 10 minutes of film just dealing with the villain. Other than that, though, I thought it was great. It's unfortunate that the second weekend it's dropped off the earth, like 60% drop off of the box office.
Yeah.
which is not a good sign. They announced a fourth movie, and they should be able to do a fourth movie just because, I mean, they'll make the money up on DVD and merchandise and Blu-ray that they should. It's just that it's a shame, though, that I think it was more of a case of this isn't really, to me, a traditional summer movie. It's almost like this could have done better either earlier, like in March, or like November, December, where it had more room to breathe. Not like, you know, you have Jason Bourne coming out the week later, which is going to destroy it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't, to me, you don't think of Star Trek as a summer movie, usually. Even though these other ones have come out in the summer.
I just feel like, I mean, you don't really need to worry about it. Star Trek movies are going to be made perpetually.
Unless they bomb. Which is, you know, which is why they weren't made for, you know, 7 years. You
Sure.
know, with Star Trek Nemesis, which wasn't as awful as I thought when I rewatched it. The last Next Generation movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't as awful. Still wasn't good. Wasn't as awful. I'm more excited about the new Star Trek series coming out in I think January is gonna be the first episode already. I'm really excited about that.
Oh, that's coming up.
So Ian, you're not going to see this anytime soon, but if you, these are still worth seeing. These new ones, they're interesting. In terms of the Sulu stuff, real quick, since we spoke about it before, it wasn't jarring, the Sulu stuff, but it still was like a sore thumb, just in terms of, not to give too much away, like where Sulu meets up with his I guess husband or boyfriend and their kid. It wouldn't have been as jarring if other characters were meeting up with their families. Like, it was just, he was the only person on the entire crew that happened to meet up with his family. So it's just sort of like, okay, like, I have to get this away because it was sort of like, okay, the scene, you see the character twice, but it was like Kirk noticing, like, they get to this space station, or he meets up with them, and Kirk just happens to see Sulu like walking away with arm around his boyfriend with the kid, and it's like, all right, but then Kirk gives this like look back. It was just sort of like, almost like the writers were sort of like high-fiving each other for that moment. It's just like, it was unnecessary to see Kirk be like, I acknowledge you and your same-sex family. It was just sort of like, not, that's where it was like, okay, you could have just showed it without.
You could have done it far more naturally.
Yes, it wasn't natural. That's what I'm trying to get. It wasn't natural. Okay, other than that, though, you know, everything else kind of flowed well. But, you know, and all the characters got something to do.
Right.
Even Uhura got something to do. Well, all the movies, the characters have something to do, but they made sure that in a movie like this, where you have like 7 different main characters, everyone did something. And Chekhov had a lot of good screen time, and rest in peace to the actor who passed away. That really bummed me out. Even seeing that probably bummed me out the most. Like, watching that movie the whole time, I was like, guy died tragically. What's his name? Anton. What's his name? Anton Yelkin. Yeah, very tragic. But they already said, though, they're not going to recast him. They're just going to have to write him out of the fourth one, which is probably the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So.